Alright, boys and girls, we're at Silver Point Tire Shop. Mr. Matt Walker, and he's requested that I come help him get this race truck running. He's got MSD wire and MSD box. We got 2 wide bands, but we're carbureted, so I told him we really only need one, where we're not using fuel injectors and not running off 2 different banks. Basically the fuel should be fine unless the engine develops a misfire. As you can see, once again, the Taylor 409 wires. Matt said those are the only wires he could run that didn't melt. This is a 408, Matt?
Yep.
Yeah, this is a 408 stroker motor, so it's a built stroked 6-liter. Armstrong's did it, you say?
Bridgewater Engine.
Bridgewater Engine did it. Sorry, not Armstrong's, but
Should have been Armstrong.
It's got a built turbo 350 bolted to the back of it with a big torque converter and a stall. It's going to be running off race fuel, and you said you even got nitrous for it too, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a nitrous kit, so we're gonna slowly get at this. First thing we're gonna do is get the Holly, or not Holly, but the MSD harness hooked up. Try to get that all run. Then we'll start hooking some main powers up, feed it some fuel, and later on today, hopefully we'll see if we can get this thing to fire. It's what, like 7:30 in the morning right now? So we're gonna get at her, and once we get some stuff done, we'll flash the camera up again and show you how we're making out. Alright, so first time playing with this MSD gear, and it's actually really nice gear to work with, really nicely labeled. Basically tells you everything: passenger side, driver side, crank, cam, grounds. We got our box just sitting inside the truck for right now. We've got the wires running for both the wide bands. Inside the truck here it's a little bit dark, but we've got the breaker box partially wired up with the sensors and everything, and the box hooked to it. We're going to do the tach next. We're just playing with the oil pressure right now, the sensor, and slowly getting some progress made here. I got the laptop fired up, and we've got the Holly software on here, so once we get our battery in, get our exhaust bungs relocated and the sensors in, all those wires connected, then we got to do a fuel line, and hopefully some point today we'll soon be ready to hit the key. We got to put a starter on it yet. Brand new engine again. But look at this 950 sitting here, big brawler. She's gonna brawl all right. So when all else fails, read the instructions, right? But when you install these AEM performance wide bands, they want the sensor to be at least 10 degrees tilted upward on the pipe. So any of you guys playing with this stuff, a lot of times I don't read instructions, but when you do, this is a pretty important little bit of information right there. Alright, we're up on the hoist now. Matt's doing the O2 sensors for the wide bands, and we're slowly getting her here. This thing's gonna be one weapon, I'm telling you. Light and quick. Take a look at that work of art. If you don't like wiring, these kind of projects probably aren't for you. But what I did was I just jumped the power across. Instead of having 6 long wires going individually to power and ground each one of these, I just crossed them, and I just hot wired the lights right into the powers and grounds. So flip one switch and every gauge and all the lights come on together. Alright, we're in the cockpit of this truck. It's now after 12 o'clock. We've been at this thing probably 5 hours now. And yes, it's definitely a bit of a wiring mess, that's no question, but we have a power board here geared up. I've got both wide bands wired up and hooked up. I've got the tach hooked up, which your signal wire goes to green, and your signal wire from the Holly is where is it here? It is the gray wire coming from the Holly for your tack signal. So we have that connected, so our tack should work. And we've also got all these gauges pre-wired and the lights wired up. Then we've got a switchboard here for our starting and our fuel pump and all that, which I just crisscross the power across, same as I did for those. If there's something that loads up heavy, I may have to wire them individually, but for now and for the first startup, this is what it's going to be. And I've got the Holly unit, not Holly, oh yeah, I guess it's Holly MSD, but this is the MSD box we're using. It's the part number 60143, and it's supposed to be, for the most part, pre-programmed. I shouldn't have to do no major adjustments. But the next step's going to be getting this hooked up and mounted, and currently working on the battery, which is we're putting in the back. We've got the power wire geared up. I just geared up a ground on the power panel here. Next step is to gear ground up on the battery to the, probably going to go right to the roll cage that's in this thing. And Matt's working on transmission lines and fuel lines, and hopefully at some point today we're going to get to crank this thing over. Well, boys, it's like really handy to 2 o'clock, and that was my time estimate, what I figured it was going to take to do all this. So I'm about an hour behind schedule, and as you can see, we have an absolute kerfuckle of wires. But couple important things I want to mention to you guys when you're doing this. When I first hooked power up, I had 10 volts coming back through my starter button for my kicker wire going to the starter. We didn't have a ground installed in the engine, so I just installed a ground in the engine, and we've got everything hooked up inside here. We've got our master kill switch for the safety bullshit. So when I snap that on, lo and behold, we got gauges, we got wide bands, we got a switch, and we got a starter, and we got a fuel pump. So this might look like a bit of a mess, but at the end of the day, I think we're looking pretty good here as far as everything goes. The next step's going to be to get it fired up and get this MSD box set up. And yeah, I think things are going quite well here so far. So this MSD software is all new to me, but looking at it, it's quite similar to HP tuners. So what we have here, all these customs and LS1 and all this is preloaded tunes that's already on this box, and you just turn this little dial with a screwdriver to set it on the ones you want to use. So where this is a fairly cammed up high build, we're going to use the truck high output table just to start off. But if need be, there's other timing tables here we can try as well, but I think this is going to be the one for it. So that's pretty cool. It's preloaded. You really don't got to adjust a whole lot. Then we've got step retard. I'll just set the other one on the bench. So yeah, fellers always got to have a few brewskis when they're into a project like this, but there's the step retard tables to set up for the nitrous, which basically you want to pull a little bit of timing, you want to set an engagement speed, and then you want to set a timing delay onto it. So that's pretty straightforward. The launch retard, I'm going to have to obviously look into this, see how it works, but it looks like it just feeds 0 ignition timing for the first few seconds to make it do what it wants. And we got data acquisition, so we can let this read data if we want to. It's selected disabled, which is strange for a first time use, but I was under the understanding that I thought you had to put your motor size and stuff into this stuff, but I don't see any settings here at all for that, so unless it's just because I'm new to this. but this looks like a fairly simple, fairly straightforward setup as far as the laptop tuning goes. So we're just hooking up some transmission lines, doing a quick loop so we can fire this thing up. Now that I've got this all in order with the wiring, even though it's a mess, it's gonna work. So stay tuned. Alright, we're gonna try doing a little test fire here. Alright, so unfortunately guys, it's Friday afternoon. We got better things to do for the weekend. But seems to be our trouble is we got a starter off of a 2016 5.3, which Matt thought would work. But she's making some awful noises, and to me it doesn't look like the teeth are lined up. We checked the part numbers, it's a different part number, so that starter's no good. We're not going to mess around anymore because you could potentially damage the flywheel the way it's set up right now. So that starter's coming off. We've already got the wires unhooked. We've got a couple other little issues. Here's the list right here. We need a new starter. We need the oil pressure sensor hooked up. Teflon tape on the fuel lines because they're leaking. And transmission lines. And we got a small coolant leak right here. So unfortunately we're not going to bring this to life today, but everything inside is done. The wiring's all hooked up. I hooked a ground wire right here to this motor mount, and that stopped the back feed of power through your starter kicker wire, which that's what it was doing when we first tried to initially roll it over. But other than that, another day. So we are going to bring this thing to life, so stay tuned and hopefully you keep watching. But I still feel pretty good that we got all this wiring done, that all the gauges, everything lights up in the truck, works the way it should. So there is definitely a sense of accomplishment after this, 8-9 hour day.